You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about family ties. I'm MJ.
And I am Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
This time we're talking about the Prodigal, Miranda's loyalty mission. Here's the summary. Shepard heads back to Ilium to speak with Lantea in a private room of the Eternity Lounge. We discover that Miranda's father found out about the relocation and sent a crew of Eclipse mercs to kidnap Oriana. Miranda puts her trust in her oldest friend, Niket, and the squad goes to play distraction. We fight through Eclipse mercs and through a cargo transport area, timing our shots through moving crates. Miranda reveals that her twin sister isn't exactly that. She's actually a 19-year-old girl who shares all of Miranda's perfectly engineered DNA. In an upsetting plot twist, it turns out Niket is working against Miranda because he thinks it's wrong she took Oriana away as a baby rather than letting her grow up and have a choice as an adult. Niket dies in the altercation, and the squad gets Miranda's sister and her family moved to a safer place.
Yeah, this mission is, it sounds like it's a lot, but it's actually one of the shorter loyalty missions.
Yeah, it's very short. There's just a lot of content happening.
Yeah, it's also very interesting that this is one of the first loyalty missions or missions in general in a while that doesn't reset back on the Normandy. When you're done, you're still on the planet you were on.
Yeah, I was really confused about that.
So I ended up just going back to the ship anyway, but yeah.
I just saved where I was because there was someone that I had to return something to anyway when I restart.
Oh, I did that bit before I turned it off. But either way, that's fine.
Yeah. I just stopped where I was. Let's talk about our check-ins.
Sure. So it's no secret to anybody listening at this point, if you've been along this ride this long, that Joker is one of my favorites. I happen to adore Seth Green individually as well for his other work, but specifically Joker as well. And Joker pretty much says what we were all thinking and saying last week, 2 weeks ago, rather. He's like, that was bullshit, right? And you're like, yeah, it was.
Well, unfortunately, you can't actually reply to it, which made me upset.
Right, yeah.
Because he does say, that's bullshit, right? Because it looked like bullshit to me. I wanted to say, yes, it was Joker. It was bullshit.
Yeah, but you don't get to reply.
Let's never do it again.
It's his comment he says when you check in with him.
Yeah. Before we talk to Kelly, I want to talk about this email that we got from Han Olar.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who that is?
Vaguely.
Well, I had to look it up because I was like, whomst? Whomst the fuck? He is the Volus scientist from Peak 15.
Mm-hmm.
And he is in therapy currently, and his therapists make him write a letter to Shepard thanking them for saving his life, but he's currently dealing with survivor's guilt. And
okay.
He's questioning why me and why not her, because I believe he closed the door on someone and let them get eaten alive by Arachni.
That sounds right, but I can't quite remember.
Yeah, I think that's what happened, but that's the gist that I got from his email. And he's suffering so much, and I was just like, oh, buddy, I am so sorry. I'm glad you're in therapy. Good for you, though. If more characters actually went to therapy, we wouldn't have so many problems in this game.
Probably. I mean, there is quite a bit of dysfunction, and I'll say it in meat space, I'll say it in games. Everybody needs therapy. Everyone. Not all the time, maybe, but everyone needs it.
Therapy is helpful.
Yes.
Well, also, it depends on, first of all, do you have the insurance to go to therapy? Second of all, are you privileged enough to find a therapist that suits your needs? Because many of us cannot.
That's true, but in the fantasy world that is Mass Effect, we're going to assume the humans figured that shit out because of self-preservation. And
at least the Asari figured that shit out at minimum.
That's true.
Okay. Well, let's talk to Kelly for a hot second just to find out that Thane wants to see us.
Yeah, my favorite thing about checking in with Kelly is that sometimes I'm too quick on the draw and I'll check my emails before she gets a chance to reply. And so I'll finish checking my email and she'll go, there are messages on your private terminal. And I'll go back thinking maybe I missed something. But no, it's just I caught it out of sync, which I think is very funny.
Yeah, I get the same experience. And I'm just like, no, there's not.
What messages? What are you talking about?
Pay attention, Kelly. Come on.
It's your job. Do your job.
Anyway, so Thane wants to talk to us. So I didn't put Jacob in our outline, but I did try to talk to him, and I have feelings about how this went down.
So for me, he thanks me for helping and then says it won't affect him or the mission. And then when I try to explore further conversation, he won't talk to me. He said, I'm not, like, his default line of not being one to push these things. And so I was like, okay.
Right. So to me, he said maybe not the best way to learn about the relatives.
Ugh.
And gross. I was just like, why are you okay all of a sudden? My dude, this happened 5 minutes ago.
I mean, did it though? We don't know how much time passes on this ship.
I mean, for me, it was 5 minutes ago.
Right. I get it.
I don't know. It feels like he's just suddenly okay.
Yeah.
I'm just like, do you want to talk? I feel like we should talk. Have you talked to Kelly at least? Confirm for me that you've talked to Kelly.
And it's like, even if you're not pursuing him, that response has the undertone of flirting. And it's like, and like, there's nothing wrong with flirting, but it's like, yes, of course, he flirts with you because you're femshep, but me, he doesn't. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. So I think I would feel a little bit better about it if in my check-in with Kelly, she said, by the way, I talked to Jacob and XYZ. Just like a follow-up on, hey, you just did this mission. So let me tell you what my views on it are. Because she always gave you those kind of updates when you picked up a new crew member. Why shouldn't she give you an update like that when you complete their loyalty mission?
Right, yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest. Again, though, like, Kelly is, as a character, was created and curated for a specific purpose, but also the through line of that purpose tends to get a little fuzzy towards latter game because you're right. It's not the same kind of follow-up that was in early game, and it's kind of curious as to why. I mean, I guess at one point you can equate it to just the urgency of running around the galaxy, but even still, you would think, like, there would be more of that still. Right.
Okay, so, yeah, and then I say to him, like, can we have a conversation? And he's like, already? I'm just like, what do you mean already?
Yeah, like, you just cracked a joke. Like, where are we, my dude?
I'm so confused. Anyway, let's talk about my sweet boy, Thane.
You mean your competition for space boyfriend?
I have so many Thane feelings.
I know.
Most of them are like grief and sympathy and empathy right now.
I mean, that's fair. So yeah, so this is, we're finally in sync on Thane conversations. This is the conversation where we get Thane's loyalty mission.
Right. So he tells us about his son Kolyat.
These names, these fucking names in this game.
Well, they're
some of them
names.
like I just like even the human ones earlier in the summary, like Niket, Oriana. Oriana I've heard before, I feel like, but Niket, what kind of name is Niket? Anyway,
it's a space name.
Obviously, space names.
I don't know.
They're weirder. The names are weirder in space. That's how it goes. Anyway, you were saying
dick about it.
About Kolyat.
Anyway, so when this conversation initiates for me, I say, like, take your time, which ends up being go at your own pace. And Thane says, I fear I've already done that for too long. And that's when he starts telling us about Kolyat. And he slips into these memory flashbacks a lot. And there's just so much grieving in them. He's talking about a moment with his son where Kolyat wants him to, like, pick him up and spin him around, and it's this really wholesome, sweet moment, but then it's interrupted by Thane being a diligent assassin trying to do his job and try to protect his son from that life, and then cuts to Erika's funeral, which has a very beautiful moment of they sang like bells, the fire has gone to be kindled anew, which is a really beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
I really love the Drell like traditions. Well, I think it might also be Hanar traditions as well. But I have so many feelings about this. And I also really appreciate that Thane says to you, "I want your help," and you have the ability to say, "I am not like a highly skilled assassin with lots of connections and your resources. What can I possibly do to help you?" Yeah. And he goes, "I don't need your help. I want your help," which paints him in this very different light as opposed to all the other people on the crew so far. Because we have Samara who's like, "I'm in an unfortunate position of having to ask for help." And Miranda took that same line. And for everybody else, asking for help is such a burden. Like, I don't want to bother you.
Right.
But I have to.
Whereas with Thane, it's like, no, I want to because I trust you. Like, it's a level of stoicism, but also understanding of self that Thane has that makes Thane interact with Shepard very differently from everyone else on the ship.
I think it's also about friendship as well.
Yeah.
Like, whether it becomes romantic or stays platonic, it's about this appreciation and respect for who you are as a person and knowing that he can count on you.
Well, yeah, and for sure also, like, he's diving deep into a friendship or connection of some kind because he hasn't had one in so long, and he knows it's latter days and that he's got a time limit, and because he's recognized that there is something there with Shepard, he wants to he's eager to pursue it. Like, there's no hesitance with Thane because Thane doesn't hesitate on anything, and I think the fact that it comes through socially too is pretty interesting.
To be fair, Thane hesitated once.
Shush. All right. Like, yes.
That led to Kolyat being born.
Yes, that's true.
Anyway, a couple of other quotes I want to highlight because they struck a chord with me. "It always rains on Kage." And "Perfect memory. It is sometimes a burden." Thane is a good sweet boy, and he doesn't deserve this.
He doesn't. And because we haven't explicitly stated it, Thane's loyalty mission is that his son has somehow become a hitman on the Citadel, and you have to go stop him because Thane has never wanted that life for Kolyat, and Kolyat still found it somehow, and so Thane wants to try and intervene and actually step up as a parent and be involved because he admits that he was kind of like with intention to protect him, but was an absent parent, so Kolyat wouldn't go down this path.
Yeah, he says that he abandoned his family, and then he goes further and says, "Nothing so dramatic as leaving them all at once, disappearing in the middle of the night. I was always away on business." And that just made me go, "Cats in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue."
All right. We can't afford the license to that song. Easy there.
You know what? If I can get in touch with Cat Stevens' estate, maybe we can work.
If Cat Stevens' estate listens to this podcast, there's a whole other host of things I'll be worried about. That's not licensing that song.
Anyway,
but yeah. So I mean, as far as personalities that we've encountered, Thane is easily one of my favorite of the newer characters, besides my sweet lizard son, because there is no, for the most part, there is no hesitation with Thane, and Thane doesn't second guess anything. And I think it's one of the most ultimate forms of healthy masculinity that he wants to protect people. He wants to do what he has to do, but he also doesn't think twice about leaning into his emotions or the lack of hesitation goes both ways. And I appreciate this character is portrayed as a skilled assassin, but also very kind and sympathetic. And there's no oh, I'm sorry to be so emotional line. There's none of that. It's just, he is Thane, and you could either take it or leave it, but he could give a shit less. He's just who he is. And I appreciate that.
seriously a femme-presenting person designed Thane, or a non-binary person. Someone who was not, like, a cis straight dude.
For sure.
Designed Thane.
Yeah.
Because he speaks so much to the queer and feminine gaze.
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does.
I like Thane. And I have feelings about aliens as queer representation. Anyway. Hey, let's go back to Ilium.
Yeah. So, going back to Ilium is interesting. You know, that now that I've got some credits in my pocket, I can pick up some of those upgrades I didn't get before. We encounter a Asari yelling loudly on the phone about something they lost or left behind, but you can't really talk to. Like, you can talk to them, but they pretty much say, "I'm busy, go away." And so you move on.
She tells you that she's on a call, but if you stay and listen, she lost, like, a trinket, and it's all that's left of her partner, and it's the only memory her daughter has of her father. So I was like, oh, I hope you get it back.
Right.
I'm really sad for you.
Also, you know, knowing the game, it's like, oh, this is the thing that'll be important later.
Yeah.
Like, it has the telltale signs of that. But yeah, so we go back to Ilium and we go to the Eternity Lounge where we check in with Lantanea.
Lantanea? I thought it was Lantea. It might be Lantanea.
Maybe. I have no idea.
Wait,
to just get the lowdown on what's going on.
Quick question. Did you ever turn in the genetic data to that Solarian? Did we talk about that at any point?
We did. I don't remember if I did or not. Is this the one? He's not on Ilium, is he?
Yeah, he is. He's in that kind of middle room.
Oh, yes. I don't know if I did. I think I have it, though, but I don't know if I returned it.
Reminder to go check in with him and see if...
Thanks. I will do that.
Let's go to the Eternity Lounge.
Yes. So here we get the lowdown of what's going on. Like, we get brought up to speed, essentially, of what has happened on Ilium so far with Oriana while we were making our way there.
Yeah. Everything about this mission is kind of abrupt, in my opinion.
It feels kind of hurried, but also, at least knowing Miranda, and Miranda is kind of like an all business, no like fluff kind of person. So I wasn't shocked that this mission kind of takes a similar structure of like, we just got to go do the thing, boom, 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 be done. And of course there are complications, but it still does feel hurried and kind of fast moving.
Yeah. The complications, as we mentioned, are that Miranda's father has found out about Miranda's relocation of her twin sister's family. Mm-hmm. And her oldest friend, Niket, is helping to transport the family. So Miranda's like, give him their complete itinerary. I trust him with everything. And me knowing what I know, I'm like, oh no.
You poor soul.
Oh no. How do I tell you that that's a bad idea? I can't.
Nope. Yeah, you can't.
Whoopsie-doodle.
At this point, you know so little about Niket and Miranda's past that you can't even, none of your conversation options are even to go, maybe that's not a good idea. Like, you have there's no option like that at all.
Yeah. So you find out that there are Eclipse Merc because, of course, there's Eclipse Mercs.
They're everywhere.
What else will there be on Ilium?
The mooks of the universe.
Well, of Ilium, at least.
That's true.
And like I said, everything starts abruptly when I said, okay, let's go.
You were in the car, magically.
Already in the car. We're already landing. We're already being shot down. What the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
This is all too fast.
Yep. And then you get out of the car immediately and encounter one of the head mercs. And like have a brief conversation about it because they know who you are. And like this whole time I'm like, what is happening? Why are we talking to these people? Why haven't I hit them with my pistol yet? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, this guy says, I don't even want to repeat it because I'm trying to not use this word derogatorily, this slur. Mm-hmm. But he calls Miranda a name and tells her that she kidnapped his boss's little girl.
Yeah.
And the second he uses that word, I'm like, oh, I'm going to punch you. I'm going to hit you, and it's going to feel good. And he, like, uses it multiple times. And I'm just like, I'm going to hurt you.
Yeah, it's interesting here. So, in the mechanics of the game at this point, during this conversation, you eye a far-off exploding canister that you can take a renegade action to shoot. It falls, blows up, and cuts down on the combat here. Which, like, you would think renegade action here is kind of, though, in your favor. I looked at it and I was like, well, I'm not going to do the renegade thing. I want to see where this conversation goes. And, of course, when you ignore it, the conversation ends and you just have to fight them anyway. And I'm a little, at that point, as Shepard, thinking to myself, I'm like, well, that's annoying. Like, I wish I knew that was the, like, you're getting kind of meta at that point. And I'm like, I wish I knew that. I would have done the bad thing just to, like, save precious killing Mook's moments.
So this guy says Captain Enyala is not as polite as he is. And I'm like, wow, what a low bar. That's a real low bar you set, my dude. I took that renegade trigger because I was so angry.
Well, you also, in the past, like, I've not taken renegade triggers that sabotage bad people where you have. Like, when we were talking about, like, the Garrus mission where you sabotage the ship, whereas I didn't. I was like, I'm not going to do that to this dude. You did it, and I don't know that there's a straight logic to why. I mean, for one, I'm not straight. Waka waka. I don't know if there's a.
I love that joke.
I don't know that there's a through line to my logic of why I won't do these bad things, other than I'm a good person. I don't want to give into the bad thing. I think part of it is also on a meta level. I'm like, I don't know how bad this bad thing is. I just know that renegades do bad things, and I don't want to be a bad guy.
Yeah, no. I was hella angry. This dude called my friend a mean word multiple times. There is a young girl's life at stake. I personally have complicated feelings about my father, so I was like, I'm gonna shoot this and it's gonna explode, and most of you are gonna die.
Yeah, I mean, it's not an illogical choice to make, and again, there have been plenty of playthroughs where I've played mostly Paragon that I've still made renegade actions, and there are some renegade actions I have taken that we've talked about, but not a ton. And part of me, again, like I was thinking on a meta level, there might be more to this conversation because, as we've discussed previously, I don't remember shit apparently. Yeah. And there wasn't, and I might have, like, there are no do-overs as we've discussed.
Well, there are do-overs for renegade for triggers.
Yeah, that's true.
Do-overs for triggers because we don't know what the outcome is.
That's true.
So
I felt like it had happened. I felt that way in the moment, so I was like, I'm going to lean into it, even though I might have done it upon second thought. I'm trying to play it as honest as possible, which the fact that I can't remember anything is helping that's for sure.
That's valid. One other reason why I did it was because the dude got in my face. Yeah. And me, personally, if you get into my face, you will be injured.
Which is legit. Again, also we're both coming at this from different places too. Yeah. You know,
I mean, that's a symptom of my PTSD.
Right. And also you being a woman and the word he used, and like I get all of that too. Like, yeah, you're living a bullshit derogatory nonsense that you've heard in actual life, I'm sure plenty too. And so that way might be way more triggering for you than it would be for me, and that makes perfect sense also. Also,
rest in peace that poor shocked Solarian that I blew up. He looked at me with so much horror. I was like, welp.
Blame your boss.
This is what you get. You joined the eclipse. This shit happens. It's called work hazard.
Yeah. And then from here, it's a lot of battling, fighting eclipse mercs and mechs. I'm finally think I'm getting like a flow for how I can do combat well. The only thing that's driving me bonkers is my favorite shotgun has no shots, essentially. It's the Geth shotgun. Like, it runs out real quick. And they're often between like groups of enemies. I'm running around with no ammo, and I'm so stubborn. I don't want to use a different gun that I will use powers till ammo drops, which is not effective.
I am the same way about my pistol. If I run out of ammo with my pistol, I'm like, well, I guess we're using cryoblast a lot.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where it's like, I like this gun. I don't like my other guns. I don't want to use them, and you can't make me.
Exactly.
But yeah, the combat here is pretty straightforward. Like, there's nothing groundbreaking in this stage. And similar complaints we've had before, this feels like another industrial Ilium section. Oh boy. Like, they all start to look the same at this point, which is a bit of a bummer.
At least they included that nifty conveyor track, creating obstacles in her path.
So annoying. Especially as someone who has limited shots with his shotgun, and then a stupid crate or whatever gets in my way, and I miss the guy, and I'm like, God damn it.
So a couple of details that we find out, as we mentioned in the summary, is that Miranda's twin sister is not her actual twin sister in that they were born at the same time, but it is her DNA, just created much later.
Yeah, it was a clone. It's essentially a clone of her created.
Yeah.
And then raised separately, which is interesting. And it goes into a whole realm of science that they don't even bother to explain either, which is fine.
Yeah. I don't need it. I don't care. I mean,
yeah.
Miranda resurrected me from, like, nothing. Fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah. The only thing that drives me nuts here is, and, like, I'm sure I noticed it plenty back when I was younger too, but when you're in high school, you're more of a ball of hormones and not really a sentient human. There are several from the back, Miranda bending over in the skin tight suit shots that just drive me bonkers. Like, there's literally no reason for this angle other than to do that. Why?
See, that didn't stand out to me. You know what did though?
What?
When she takes those very slow steps and they focus on her feet.
Her feet, yeah.
I'm just like, ooh, that's a power walk.
Yeah, that's a very Dami move, but that I appreciate. Like, that's something I feel like that's different. Like, and again, like the good thing is like we discussed a shot earlier when you're talking to her and she's standing in front of the camera and like 90% of the screen is her ass. Like, that was a shitty, pervy shot to the extreme. Whereas here it's just brief moments.
And I really need to pay more attention to when Miranda's on screen. I super do not for some reason.
I mean, also, like, she's played by an attractive actress who I am attracted to, and, like, she's not an unattractive person. And so, but I'm just so self-aware and so aware of over-sexualization that, like, I call out those moments because I notice them. And someone could say that I'm just being oversensitive and that it's not a big deal, which is valid, I guess. I don't know. As a dude,
I don't think you're being oversensitive.
Yeah, as a dude, I'm trying to walk this line of, here's a thing I noticed that might not be appropriate, but also what do I know? Because I'm not the gender being portrayed. So what the hell do I know? Kind of.
I think what you're saying is completely valid. I just personally did not pay attention. I think that's just because I'm not emotionally invested in Miranda.
Yeah, which is fair.
I kind of like glaze over when she's on screen, and that's not fair to her. I should be paying more attention. But there was a moment that I made note of later that we'll get to.
Yeah, I think also with Miranda for me is, again, I really like the actress. I loved the TV show Chuck, and she's been in a bunch of other stuff. And so, like, for me, that's where the interest comes in, is like, ooh, an actress who they took her likeness for the face of Miranda, like, is playing this really interesting, playing this character, and I think the actress is really interesting, so I want to pay attention. And also, knowing what I know, having played the series, like, Miranda does come out of her shell a little bit, but she is definitely not the most interesting human character in Mass Effect history, for sure.
So, my renegade actions are showing in my eyes a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then all throughout our fight here, Inyala is so vaguely threatening.
So, yeah.
It's like, pull my guards off of Niket. I'll handle that myself.
Yeah. And, like, up until pretty much the last moment, we still think Niket is, like,
in danger.
Right. And it's not until we finish the last big fight of this area before the final fight that we hear Inyala talk about meeting with Niket. And Miranda then, of course, starts to have a bit of a breakdown because she's like, that can't be, that's not possible,
Right. Niket helped her escape from her father.
Right. And so she thought for sure Niket would be on her side because he helped her and is an old friend that they had sort of stayed in she'd sort of stayed in contact with. And And so, yeah, and then immediately after that, you deal with the reckoning of it, where you confront Niket and Yala.
So here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that Miranda took a baby and smuggled her, I don't want to use kidnapped or rescued, but like took this baby from the originally intended home and brought the baby to like another family to be raised in a different environment. Do you think Miranda did the right thing?
So that's a hard call to make. So here's the thing. I am not currently a parent. I would like to be at some point. I'm eager to be at some point. But the reality is, I didn't live in Miranda's home. I don't know what her father was actually like, as I was not there. I can only take her at her word. And so if she was battered and bruised and mistreated and not taken well care of and mistreated, wanting to give her sister a better life, even if it is a more humble one, doesn't seem wrong to me. But again, when dealing with parentage and, siblings and that kind of a thing, it's really hard to make the call based on someone else's life and situation, because every situation is so different.
Yeah.
I think I would say that, knowing nothing and just knowing that a woman took a baby from their father, like I'd probably be more inclined to side with the father, the actual parent. But then again, this is family versus family, so it's not even just some woman; it's the sister versus the father. I think it makes
Right.
for me, it makes it too complicated to just say she's wrong or she's right, if that makes sense.
No, it definitely does. This is one of those gray areas. On the one hand, if Miranda is telling me that is a hostile living environment and I took the baby out of it to protect her from what was going to be actually a really dreadful life, disguised as a wealthy and comfortable one, then I do believe her. But on the other hand, a baby does not have agency. A baby cannot make decisions.
Correct. And also part of it is we all grew up with parents that, whether we got along with, didn't get along with, loved, didn't loved, your memories of your childhood can and sometimes are harsher than they actually were, because all it takes is how it meant to you, regardless of objectively what it looked like. If you felt you were wronged or mistreated or abused, even if your parent wasn't the intent, it doesn't matter at that point, because how you took it, how you felt, and how it affected you is what you take with you and what does matter,
Right. Intent and impact are not the same thing, and you have to worry about your impact. Your intent does not necessarily matter.
Correct.
So Niket turned on Miranda because he felt that the baby deserved a chance to grow and make that decision for themselves the way Miranda made that decision for themselves. But
Yep.
Miranda, having the benefit of experience, was like, no, I'm gonna save her before it is too late.
Right. And we also find out in that moment that Niket also hasn't told her father. Her father doesn't actually know yet
Right.
that Oriana's here, at least. Like, he wanted to come and try and see if he could do something before telling him, and also to use as an olive branch to Miranda, like, I haven't told him yet, let's talk about this, whatever. And in that moment, you get to decide how that plays out.
Yeah. So what'd you do?
So Miranda lifts her gun to shoot Niket, and you can take a Paragon action to stop her, and I did.
I did.
In the same way that I wanted to protect Jacob in the last mission, and like I let him handle that situation, but I didn't want him to pull the trigger. Same thing here with Miranda. It's like you don't need that on your conscience, because he did do good for you, and he wasn't an aggressor in this moment. He's trying to talk to you, and like to shoot him is not the right answer.
Right.
And you said you did the same thing, yeah?
Yeah, I was reminded of this quote from a book that I really like called Shatterglass by Tamara Pierce. And there's a moment where the protagonist is poised to kill someone. And she says, he deserves to die. And someone says to her, that may or may not be true. But do you really deserve to have to be the one to kill him?
That's a good quote.
So that's what I thought about. Because she doesn't deserve to have that on her conscience. That will haunt her. That will ruin her.
Yeah. And I mean, we also know that Miranda's had to do some heinous shit at this point anyway, regardless.
Yeah,
but
she doesn't have to do this.
Right, absolutely. And I think also, like, at the end of the day, my shepherd wants to try and see if we can talk shit out, see if we can get to a meeting place. Of course, the minute our, what's her name? Enyala finds out that the father doesn't know, she ties up that loose end anyway. And so no matter what you do in that moment, Niket dies. Either Miranda kills Niket or Enyala does. And for both of us, Enyala did. She's like, oh, that's all I needed to know. Bang, done. And in that moment, I was like, oh, okay, that's how it's going to be. So that's when my shepherd got angry.
Before we progress, we skipped a couple of things that I wanted to point out.
Sure.
When we first emerged from the elevator, there's this attendant, I guess, who looks at us, looks at them, and goes, nope, and runs away. And then Yala just casually shoots her in the back. And I was like, well, that was fucked up.
Yeah, and like casually shoots her in the back, and she goes flying because Yala's got a shotgun.
Yeah.
And like
what the fuck?
I can't tell if that moment's played for laughs or not. It's so hard to tell.
Like, I'm laughing now at the absurdity of it, but in that moment, it was like, what just happened?
Like, how I can't believe you did that. But I mean, from a storytelling perspective, I kind of get it. Like, that's kind of a hint, right? That's foreshadowing to what Enyala is going to do if you stop Miranda from killing Niket. Like that, how cavalier she is with other people's lives. Yeah. Like that's an important moment to show that. And I think that's the purpose of it, ultimately, whether it's played for laughs or not, is that this woman doesn't care. She'll kill anybody. She just wants what she wants. And
speaking of literary devices, there is a moment where Miranda says to Niket, I didn't steal her, I rescued her. And Enyala echoes that back to her.
Yeah.
When Shepard says to her, like, you're here to kidnap a kid? What's wrong with you? And Enyala says, I'm not stealing her, I'm rescuing her. But it's not done with sarcasm. She's saying it as earnestly as Miranda said it. I almost called her Mary. Which is what Niket called her. And I was like, oh, that made it extra sad.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, but the way he talks to her, too, like, you immediately get the sense of their relationship and their bond. Yeah. They convey that very quickly and very well, which I thought was actually really great.
The other thing is, like, I completely forgot about this. Enyala says to Miranda, I was waiting for you to get dressed. Does Cerberus let you whore around in that outfit? And I was just like, what?
Whoa.
What did you just say? And like Miranda on my team is wearing like armor.
Right, you're using the alternate costume.
Like she's wearing armor, so you have a very skewed opinion of how people dress.
Yeah. I mean, again, all of this is to paint clear pictures of these characters, right? To a point. Like, give us characterization in a very short amount of time. And it's effective for that. Whether it's the best way to do it is arguable, but it's definitely effective.
Yeah. So, once Niket is killed, Miranda, for us, lifts Enyala and tells her that she'll die for that. More use of that word that I don't like.
Yeah, she goes like Supreme Dark Jedi at that point. It like lifts her up and chucks her across the room.
Yeah.
Which is, I'll admit, pretty badass to see happen.
It was. No, that was awesome. And then the fight with Enyala was relatively short.
Yeah, it was fine. I died once because I got surrounded early. And again, playing the Vanguard, it's a few miscalculations and you can be killed pretty easily just because of the way combat is designed for a Vanguard.
Right.
But that said, the second time I stood further back, I made smarter choices, and I was fine. I beat it on the second playthrough.
Yeah, there wasn't anything special or particularly challenging about killing Inyala. And then once we're done, you do some snooping around. You find this little trinket. Oh, it looks like a locket. Perhaps it has sentimental value.
Perhaps that will be important later.
So we leave and we see that Oriana is relocated safely and all is well. And Miranda's like, okay, let's go.
And you're like, wait a minute. Where are you going?
So I take it that we both encouraged Miranda to go talk to her.
Yes. Like, essentially, Shepard is like, if you go that Paragon path, it's like, she deserves to know she has a sister, especially considering everything she's gone through. Like, it'd probably be nice to know she has a sister out there in the world that cares about her as much as you do. It's actually a fairly genuinely sweet moment between Miranda and Shepard, one of the first, and it made me like, it's the first time you see Miranda kind of soft-spoken and feeling shy, like all of these things that she never portrays because she's just so worried about ruining things for Oriana. She wants her to be safe and protected, and it's a genuinely sweet moment. Which I really liked.
Yeah, I wish we had gotten to see the conversation that they had.
Yeah.
But it's safe to say that they did have a nice conversation, and Oriana now knows that she has a sister out there in the world. And I think it was especially important to encourage her to talk to her because Miranda is about to go on the suicide mission. Yeah. You might not come back. You should let her know that, like, you exist and that you care.
Yep, especially if you're going to get dead in just, a few months, which may or may not happen.
Okay, so one final thing that I want to talk about is when you end the mission and you get the mission report.
Mm-hmm.
Did you read it?
I didn't. I've gotten so fed up with the mission reports that I tend to breeze past them.
Well, allow me to quote this for you.
Please
Miranda
do.
Lawson is too valuable to Cerberus, and Oriana's well-being is the easiest means of procuring loyalty.
Jeez. Ugh, gross.
What the fuck? What even? What is this? That is, like, your second in command that you're talking about. She is a person. This is her sister. Like, she was loyal to you no matter what. Ooh.
Yeah, it continues in the path of the elusive man being a terrible being, period.
Like, to him, these aren't people, these are resources. And I'm like, you need to stop.
I mean, we know he's not going to.
I know, but this is how I feel in the moment.
Fair. That's fair.
Like, if I were Shepard, I'd be like, that data pad's in the garbage. Fuck that.
Yeah, right?
So
Fuck
mad.
this guy.
Fuck this guy. So I have a question about the so far 2 loyalty missions we've done so far. And I want to ask you how the focus on paternal relationships makes you feel as a player.
I mean, it's funny. Had you asked me that question months ago, I might have answered differently, but I'm not going to elaborate, but things in my own life with my own parents have become complicated for a bunch of different things. Everyone's fine, everyone's alive, but it's made me think more on the fact that parents aren't around forever and that those relationships will always be what they'll be. You can hope to improve them as time goes on, but for the most part, they are what they are. And like some of the games focus on paternal relationships does like affect me and others don't. I mean, I think like as we discussed 2 weeks ago with Chuck, like a lot of the stuff in Jacob's mission kind of like the parent stuff rolls off because I'm too busy focused on all the heinous human stuff that this guy did. So the relationship side of it, like kind of washes past me. And like that, but whereas this one, you know, there's so much more heavy focus on like protecting the child, being a protector, being I'm trying to think of other words for it, but like being someone who cares for someone else in a way that's, you know, a very specific kind of family love, that I think hit me a little harder this time around than it has in the past. And I think part of that is because of my want to protect my parents and take care of them forever if they need it, and also their want to do the same for me that they've always wanted to do for me. And there's more to come with that stuff. And it does, like, we haven't gotten to Tali's mission yet, but we know it has to do with the flotilla and her father. I don't know that it stood out to me as much in earlier playthroughs how much there is a focus on that, but I definitely have taken a lot more notice now. I don't know that I feel a certain way about it quite yet, but I'm definitely taking a lot more notice of it.
I was curious about your answer because I've known you for 11 years now. Happy friendiversary.
Thanks.
And I've known your family for that long as well. And I know you've always had a fairly positive relationship with them. Whatever the ups and downs have been, you've always come out appreciating and respecting your parents and their desires and wishes for you and their blessings for you in your life. And you are one of the people that I know that has a very positive relationship with your parents. And as you know, and as listeners may know, I did not have the same kind of relationship with my father.
Right.
He passed away in 2016, and he was a challenging person, to say the least. He was racist and homophobic and definitely Islamophobic and transphobic, and you name it, he hated it unless it was straight white middle class Americana 1950s perfection, right? Which makes the fact that he loved Mass Effect so fucking surreal to me. We took two different things out from this game.
Right.
Like, my dad liked killing, just like shooting things. Like, that's what he was into. He liked killing Nazis. He liked killing mercs. He just enjoyed shooting games. That was what was fun for him. If I tried to engage him on a narrative level, he was just like, I don't really pay attention to that.
Right.
So we did not connect there, but I had a very challenging relationship with him, and I never felt that I could be my full self with him. He never knew that I was queer. He never knew anything about my life, aside from that I was doing my best to leave good behind in the world, and we often clashed on our beliefs. So for me, these missions with this heavy focus on paternal relationships is dredging up a lot of feelings about my father. Like, Jacob and his father never saw eye to eye. His father disappeared at one point and committed atrocities. And that, in my opinion, was bad writing. But if we look past that and just see it as it is, like, I don't know if my father would have been that type of person, but it definitely made me feel some things about the way that my father has treated other people in the past. And then we have Miranda, who is fighting so hard to protect a younger version of herself from the monster that was her father. And I feel like if my father had known about my queer identity when I was younger, you would have met a very different person 11 years ago, if you even met me at all.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it's hard. Like, that's life, right? We spend a lot of time thinking about the things that could have been different if things had been different. And, of course, we can't go back and change them. I can't imagine that I would look at this game the same way with one of my parents or both of them not being alive, just based on how my relationship was very different with them. But that said, like, knowing your father pretty well, because I had been around a lot, it's interesting to me that he played a game like Mass Effect also, because there are hints of your father's personality. Like you said, he was not a very open-minded person, but you had queer friends that he came to love and actually quite care about, you know, and ask about and want to talk to. You know, he because he had his claws deep in these things that he hated and that he wanted to do away with. But on the same token, when they came into his life, for the most part, because there was a heart in there somewhere, he would turn over often. And so it's just very interesting to me to discuss that now after the fact, of course, especially when dealing with a game like this, when you're right. Like Mass Effect, as far as I'm concerned, and we've said it endlessly, is one of the queerest video games, not just because of the obvious queer relationships that you can pursue, but because interacting and sexualizing and wanting to be involved with aliens in any way like that, we often argue is queer. Not everyone agrees, but that's okay. People can be wrong. And so, yeah, I can't even imagine what that's like. But also, it's just interesting, like seeing sides of him that not a lot of people got to see. I'm curious if he would roll the other way, and he would have accepted you if you had told him later in life some of those things. It's hard to say, right?
Honestly, it's not. My father would have disowned me.
Really?
If he found out when I was a teenager, he would have killed me.
Hey.
See, you didn't see my father at his, like, truest self. My father loved you. My father loved you unconditionally.
Yeah.
He thought, like, the sun set in your eyes. He thought you were great because, like, you were a big, tall man who was taking care of me at the time.
Right.
Like, he loved you. He didn't love that you were Jewish, but that's because, again, my father was a bigot. But
right.
He loved that you were like you, and he could talk to you about technology and video games, and as long as it never went past that, he was happy.
Right.
If you guys had ever got into it about politics, then he would have been like, why are you dating him?
That's true. Well, I mean, I purposely avoided that as a
right.
result.
But, like, the very first time he ever, like, put hands on me in a violent way, it was when he walked in on me sharing, like, not even a intimate moment, but a vulnerable moment. Like, I was tired and I was being cuddled by a boyfriend, and he, like, tried to throw me up the stairs over it.
Jeez.
So,
all right.
Yeah. My father would have killed me if it had been a girl.
I mean, it's fair. You obviously can speak better on that than I can.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate you trying to put my father into a nice light and trying to be like, he wasn't that terrible. I'm really sorry, but he was.
No, I mean, he was. I don't know that I would ever say that he wasn't a terrible person, because at the end of the day, he was. He had said and done a ton of terrible things, but you know, I'm also, you know me, I try and look on the bright side at every point, almost annoyingly, until I am convinced there is no hope left whatsoever, and we're not quite there yet.
Yeah. I also don't believe in saying nice things about people who have passed away just because they've passed away.
Oh, no. God, no. There are tons of shitty people who have died, and they're still shitty.
Anyway, so that was your real feelsy moment for this podcast.
You're welcome,
Can we move on?
And we're sorry.
Why don't we talk about some things that don't suck and things that are actually pretty awesome?
Yes, like Fandom Corner, which I actually have something for Fandom Corner for a change.
You've got a double feature, folks.
I'm actually very excited to talk about this next person because I was on his stream while he was playing Mass Effect, and I talked about Reignite, which he wanted me to send him on Twitter, and so I did. His name is Derek Van Dyke, Derek of the Dykes on Twitter and Twitch. And he's a all-around gaming nerd who I became friends with through the members of the SDGC podcast. There are several hosts. And we just like in the same Twitter circles, have been responding to the same stuff, had the same kind of sensibility and ridiculous sense of humor I did. And we started interacting on Twitter frequently. And then I discovered he streamed. And when I started streaming more regularly, I started checking in on his stream. And he recently finished Dark Souls 2, maybe, or 3. I don't remember. I don't really pay that much attention to Dark Souls. But after he finished it, his Thursday slot opened up. And so Thursdays and Fridays he streams at 11 a.m. Eastern time. And so last week for his new Thursday game, he decided to play Mass Effect, and he's going to be playing through Mass Effect, I think the whole series, it sounds like. And so I wanted to promote him. If you want to relive playing through Mass Effect but not actually play it, and help him point at all the holes and nonsense that we've pointed at in the first Mass Effect game, you can watch him. He's at twitch.tv/Derek of the Dykes, Dykes, just like his last name. And he's just a delight. He's really charming. He's this delightful boy who's a pansexual dreamboat, and I hope he hears this. And he's a really engaging streamer. He's a really great nerd. You should check out SDGC as well. They stream their podcast live and then release it on podcast feeds as well. But we haven't really talked about people playing the game recently, and I wanted to shout him out since he's going to be going through the series. And there are plenty of folks out there who like to watch others play games, and this would be a great way to relive Mass Effect if you don't have the wherewithal to actually play it yourself, which I wouldn't blame you, because sometimes it's a chore to play certain parts of the Mass Effect games.
Yep.
So that's my bit. So check out Derek Van Dyke wherever you can find him in the nerdy things that you love.
Yay, thank you for bringing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And that explains a lot, because when I got notifications from our Reignite Twitter from Derek of the Dykes, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Whomst?
Yeah. Because I was in the chat in his Twitch stream saying that I said, do you know I have a Mass Effect replay podcast? And he went, I do not. Tell me more. And I was like, I'll tweet it at you. And so that's when I tweeted it at him, and then he followed it after his stream was over. So yeah, that was great.
Yeah, I was trying to find the thread. I'm like, what prompted that? Why are you just yelling our podcast at people? I mean, it's fine, but like, anyway. So as I mentioned, we have a double feature for Fandom Corner. I almost said Fandom Friday. That is a different thing. That is not this podcast.
That's true.
And I have the album Terminus by Eyeshadow 2600 FM. It is a new wave, I think. Hang on, I'm going to get the exact description. Yeah, it looks to be like new wave synth kind of music. And it's really fun. It's all inspired by Mass Effect 2 and 3. And it's just nice to listen to. My favorite song is Her Blue Girlfriend. And the artist Eyeshadow 2600 FM agreed to let us play a clip of it on the podcast, which we'll do as soon as I'm done talking about it. I was scrolling through Twitter through the Mass Effect tag, and I saw someone reviewed it and talking about how great it was, and I was just like, yes, please. So I sat down and I listened to it, and it's really chill to listen to. Mm-hmm. And then she also uses clips from the game itself in some of the songs.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So, like, there's a song called The End of the Line, which I think is during the suicide mission.
Sounds right.
And then during More Human Than Human, there's clips from when Shepard was being woken up. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And during Her Blue Girlfriend, there's actually a clip from Mass Effect 3. There's a very sweet moment between Liara and Shepard if you romance Liara. And it's just very cute and nice.
That's awesome.
So, I highly recommend it. As I said, Eyeshadow 2600 FM. The album is called Terminus. And listen to a clip, which is going to happen now, probably.
And so there was the clip. I will gracefully edit it in there somewhere, hopefully.
We'll pick one and it'll be fine.
Yes. I will pick a song and stick it in there. And if you want to know more, definitely go to Bandcamp, eyeshadow2600fm.bandcamp.com, and download all of their music. But you can start with Terminus, which we have talked about.
We plan stuff, I swear.
Sometimes.
Anyway, that is everything. Is there anything else that you want to talk about in terms of Prodigal before we move on to the outro?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So our next episode is going to be Subject Zero. That is Jack's loyalty mission with special guest Jean Harlot.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun. Jean Harlot is a burlesque performer that I have befriended over the last few years, and I like when I have perception of a person, and then it turns out, oh, they're a secret nerd, or in her case, not so secret nerd, but like the minute I started posting about Reignite, she's like, oh my god, I love Mass Effect. I can't believe you do a Mass Effect podcast. And I was like, excellent.
Yeah, we have been planning this for a year. By the way, happy 1 year anniversary to Reignite. I forgot to mention that.
Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, it'll be and change. But yeah, I can't believe it's been a year already. It simultaneously feels like with most things that I love, like it's been happening forever and also not that long at the same time.
Yeah. Well, if you like what you've heard here over the past year, follow us on social media at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, subscribe on your favorite podcatcher if you can. It helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain Point of View Network. Visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server on the website, and you can join in the conversation there. It's a lot of fun hanging out with folks, just posting memes and talking about how hot Thane is. So join us, won't you?
I'm just talking about my confused feelings about Thane.
Yeah, we know.
Also, we might have a new, name for our listeners. Tell us what you think about Afterburners.
Yeah, if you want us to refer you as the Afterburners, let us know in the comments, on social media, pretty much anywhere you can yell at us in the world, let us know. Yeah, why not? We haven't really had a thing to call you guys y'all yet. I almost said you guys y'all. So let us know what you think.
If you want to hear more of me, you can find me at COF Pod, a podcast about the Circle of Magic by Tamara Pierce, where we discuss friendship, Threadcraft, and Briar Moss. And Not That Robcast, where we discuss the works of Rob Thomas. No, not that one.
Whichever one you're thinking of, it's actually the other one. You can find a lot of my podcasts on the Certain POV Network, but also the thing I'm pushing hard right now is I've been streaming more frequently on Twitch, twitch.tv/DJ_Stormageddon. I have a series running with my good friend Katie where we're playing Stardew Valley badly. Mostly I'm playing badly. I'm bad at farming, but she is guiding me with pats on the head and telling me where to plant things. And I've been playing a lot of SNES games. They just released a library of SNES games on the Switch, and it's been really fun putting out polls on Twitter for what I should play and then playing them poorly, as platforming games were way harder in the SNES era than I remembered, at least.
We'd like to thank Christina Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Alenko. You can find more of their work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram. We'd also like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble, and Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon. We should
go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.